everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Opening Tee Podcast. Definitely a little bit of different pace for this one, as last week we had the U.S. Open and had all of the best players in the world competing, and what a week it was. But now we shift over to the Corales Puntacana Championship, which actually, because the Ryder Cup was canceled, is now a full Fedex Point event, but still the field is rather weak, which, no surprise, it's in a different country the week after a major, so not many golfers that were playing the U.S. Open are hopping on the charter down to the Dominican this week, but we still have a good amount of players in the field that are of interest, especially one that just came in the top 10 last week at the U.S. Open, Will Zalatoris. And if this is your first time coming into the Opening Tee Podcast, welcome and thank you for joining and listening on part of the Awesemo Golf Podcast weekly series, the first of 3 short-form podcasts that try and break down all the important information in just under an hour, released on 3 different days for your consumption purposes, or at least that's the way I hope so. Now, if this is your first time joining, I go into my foursome of facts for the first week, and Will Zalatoris was going to be one of those foursome of facts. So let's start off with him. And mentioned he is playing on the Korn Ferry Tour. We mentioned him quite a bit last week. He's had now 12 straight top 20s. He's ranked 76th in the world, but yet he's playing on the Korn Ferry Tour. He can't even play on the PGA Tour, but this week he is. He had a sponsor's invite here to the Punta Cana Championship, but because of his top 10 at the U.S. Open, he gets that for free. He gets to save his sponsor exemption, so he'll have another 5 or so, somewhere in that range. So very interesting. That's my first one. The second fact is Bryson DeChambeau, man. I think he may go mainstream now, and I think it's a great thing for golf. He's going to bring, I've said it from the very beginning with him, he brings eyeballs to the game, and with this win, he's going to be on all the talk shows and all that. It's just going to bring so much more, and I'm in. I've always liked Bryson. I like the way he does it, plus the fact that he's got a pretty big rivalry with Brooks Koepka. I'm all in on that, as you guys know, or most of you know. If you've been listening to me for a while, I'm not a fan of Koepka. Second one, Wolf, 2 of 2, top 10 in majors. Pretty impressive there. But what's even more impressive, you ready for this? There were 13 golfers in the top 10 this week. 11 of them were United States. 11 of 13. Only Rory McIlroy and Louis Oosthuizen representing the international crowd. Man, that is just rather, I guess, I would say, to a degree, embarrassing for the European contingent. Doesn't look good for them going into the Ryder Cup, but of course the Ryder Cup is a whole new ballgame that'll be played next year, of course. The last one I'm going to talk about is the South Africans reigning supreme in Portugal. If you follow along on the European Tour, Garrick Higo, I think I'm pronouncing that correct, the 21-year-old shot 7 under to win. George Coetzee, though, who just was a winner previous week, another top 5 for him, coming in 3rd. A really good stretch of golf he's on right now. Okay, let's go on and head into our statistical review, which, of course, if you want all of this information, all of the strokes gained stuff that I'm about to talk about, I put it as part of my PGA DFS model each and every week for my Awesemo Plus members. And if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, great time to join. $8.95 for this week. This month, it's going to take you up through most of the fall swing, which going to be a lot of players you probably don't know all that well getting to play here, so a great time to join and utilize the research that we have, including our top golfers tool, which had no one other than Will Zalatoris as the number 1 play from last week, so certainly come out and take a look at that. Okay, let's go into our statistical review, and in this, if this is your first time joining, what I do in this is compare the age-old statistics to the new age of strokes gained and see what we can find in similarities. Strokes gained off the tee last week, Rory McIlroy, number 1, Bryson, number 2, Bubba Watson, number 3, Taylor Pendrith, number 4, John Rahm, 5, Hideki Matsuyama, 6, Kokrak, 7, Westwood, 8, Wolf, Peters, and Zalatoris were 9, 10, and 11 there. When we go to driving distance, Dustin Johnson, Matt Wolff, Taylor Pendrith, John Rahm, Joaquin Niemann, Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, Paul Casey, and Tony Finau. So I would say a pretty good crossover. Pretty much most of the strokes gained off the tee this week were from the distance. As Brendan Todd, Sungjae Im, Rory McIlroy showed up. Victor Hovland, Lucas Glover, Hideki Matsuyama, Tyler Duncan, Harris English, Lee Westwood, Adam Long, Paul Casey, Rabat Cabrera Bello in driving accuracy. So Rory McIlroy was in both. I'm very surprised that he played as bad as he did, hitting as many fairways as he did and hitting the ball as long and as far as he does. Very disappointing to see him have the finish that he did. He showed up on both, and he was the only one. Matsuyama was the other one. Sorry. Matsuyama and McIlroy, the only one on driving accuracy to show up on strokes gained off the tee, as distance is certainly reigning supreme. If we go over to our strokes gained on the approach, Bryson DeChambeau, Dustin Johnson, Tony Finau, Matt Wolff, Hideki Matsuyama, Tyler Duncan, Will Zalatoris, Patrick Reed, Bubba Watson, Sung J M, Eric Van Rooyen, Thomas Pieters, and Paul Casey rounded out. And let's go on and check the GIR, which is led by Sung J M. Another one I guess I'm surprised that he hit the most greens out of anybody in the week, and known as one of the better putters on tour. Still did not find himself into the top 10. I would have thought that was a guaranteed. If you were to told me, hey, Sung J M's going to lead the field in greens in regulation this week, I would have almost guaranteed him to be in the top 10 or 15. He finished just outside of that. Bubba Watson, Rory McIlroy again. McIlroy, greens in regulation, led in driving distance, up there in strokes gained off the tee, and didn't even get a top 5 finish out of it. Brutal. Bryson DeChambeau, Thomas Pieters, Matt Walsh, Lucas Glover, Matt Wolff, Louis Oosthuizen, Tony Finau, and Ricky Fowler on the greens in regulation. So a decent crossover there, as there typically is between strokes gained approach and greens in regulation. Last one we're going to do is, of course, the putts per GIR and strokes gained putting. Typically, there is a very big correlation between the two. Patrick Reed was number 1. Harris English 2, Webb Simpson 3, Zach Johnson 4, Adam Long 5, Lucas Herbert, Renato Paratori, Justin Thomas, Taylor Pendrith, and Cameron Smith all round out the top 10. And when we go to strokes gained putting, Zach Johnson, so there's a crossover check. Rafa Cabrera Bello, no check there, interesting. Webb Simpson to check. Joaquin Niemann, how about that? Joaquin Niemann came in 5th this week for strokes gained putting. Lucas Glover, holy moly, what a week. Barely ever see those guys up there. Then, of course, Alex Noren, Brendan Todd, Jason Kokrak, Louis Oosthuizen, Charles Howell, Xander Schauffele, and Daniel Berger. So not as much crossover there as we're used to seeing, but that's the way it goes. Okay, now we're going to go into our our cut sweat segment. It's a great one. This is kind of just some filler content, maybe not too much you can take out of it, but I guess a little bit. I go into something a little bit about strokes gained putting if a player missed the cut directly due to his putting, like this week, Byung-Hyun An, who, again, the cut was +6, Byung-Hyun An was +7, and lost 4 strokes putting. John Augustine, Matthew Fitzpatrick. The putting run for Fitzpatrick ended, he shot +7 and lost 2.8 strokes putting over the 2 rounds. Those were the only 2 guys to actually really miss the cut due to their putting. Maybe you could make a case for Keegan Bradley, but not really. Maybe Tommy Fleetwood as well, but again, not really. Very, very close. Regardless, anyways, let's go into our cut sweat segment. Let's first start off with the made segment. Abraham Ancer needed to play the last 4 under par and did so, making a 6-foot slider on 18. Next, Shane Lowry. He needed to play the last 3 holes at 2 under, including birdieing 8 and 9. So really, the last 2 holes at 2 under, and he did so. Patrick Cantlay, he needed to play the last 4 holes at 3 over or better, and guess what? He doubled 18 to make it on the number. Crazy. Didn't play that great over the weekend either. Now getting into some good putts made. Bobby McIntyre needed a 23-footer to make the cut and got it. Picked up a decent paycheck. Brian Harmon, he needed to make a 10-footer. Lucas Herbert needed to make a 4-footer. Roy Ishikawa needed to make a 14-footer. Christian Bezuidenhout needed to make an 11-footer. Paul Casey, he needed to just shoot even par, including a birdie on 9, a 6-footer, and did so. So a pretty good pull-off from Paul Casey, and Casey ended up inside the top 25 after a good weekend. Now we switch over to the missed side, and there's some brutal ones. Maybe none more brutal than this first one, Matthew Fitzpatrick. He needed to play the back 9 and 1 under, and after a hole out on 15 for eagle, he got to that number, but he 3-putted 18 from 28 feet to miss the cut, including a 6-footer. Brutal. Hanan, he missed a 12-footer to make it. Takumi Kanaya, he needed par on 18 or a 37 on the back. He couldn't do either. Joel Damon, he needed to play the last 5 holes at 2 under. He made 3 birdies, but 2 bogeys as well, missed by 1. Martin Keimer, he needed to play the back in 38 and couldn't, including a missed 15-footer for par on 18. How about Davis Thompson? Oof, this was probably one of the worst missed cuts out there. He missed an 11-footer after shooting under par in round 1 to miss the cut. Just a tough showing for the young Georgia Bulldog. Colin Morikawa, how about this? He couldn't birdie the 9th easiest hole after being in the middle of the fairway. He left a 12-footer about an inch short. Brutal. Corey Connors, he missed a 12-footer, who I expect to be one of the favorites this week, believe it or not. And then Kurt Kitayama, he couldn't birdie 18 to make the cut after an opening round, even par 70. So, tough one there for Kurt Kitayama. Okay, so that is it for the U.S. Open. It really was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. From the people that are closest to me that love watching golf as well, they even said that it was one of the hardest courses they had watched in quite some time, but maybe not quite as hard as Shinnecock Hills was a couple of years ago. However, I would have loved to see this Bryson come try and compete at that golf course. Maybe we will get that in a couple of years. So, all right, let's move on to this week, the Corales Puntacana Championship. And typically, I would have the golf contest, or at least a preview of how much money you could possibly win by playing DFS golf this week on DraftKings, but they haven't posted the contest quite yet. I'm not sure why, whatever the reason may be to it. However, I could expect, we've been getting 200,000, 100. I could expect at least 6 figures. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Maybe at the very worst, we'll get a $50K to first, $150K guaranteed for the $5, something like that. But still, nonetheless, we don't have any of that information right now. What we do have the information on is that we're playing Corales Puntacana Golf and Resort Country Club. This is a par 72, 7,600 yards. It's a Tom Fazio designed. We're going to get top 65 and ties 144 golfers heading down there this week. They're going to get to play a golf course that has seen a minus 18 winner a couple of times now. That being a par 72, we get an average score of about 3/4 of a stroke under par. I'm sorry, not 3/4 of a stroke, maybe a little bit easier than that. I think it's going to give you the exact one here. Average score is 71.074, so minus 926 under par. Ranked 30 out of 47 easiest, so, one of the top 20 easiest courses in 2019. When we played at this course, obviously, this was one of the events that got moved to this part of the schedule because of COVID-19, so it didn't actually happen last year. So Graham McDowell is defending champion Bryce Garnett the year before. So that's very interesting that those two guys are the two winners. As we look at off the tee, or approach, around the green, and on the green, some facts and figures from this Tom Fazio designed Bermuda Championship course. As far as off the tee goes, from some of the toughest fairways to hit at Winged Foot that we've had all year to some of the easiest, as just over 70% of the fairways will be hit, ranked 5th easiest on the 2019-20 season. How do they do it? Well, it's 12 par 4s, 10 par 4s and 4 par 3s, 4 par 5s. The par 4s go 433, 410, 465, 387, 399, 496, 446, 421, 461, and 405. So we got 2 under 400. Then we got 4 par 5s, 565, 515, 623, 626. A little longer on those back ones. And then the 4 par 3s, 239, 204, 265, and 214. In terms of your approach to the green, once you're in the fairway 70% of the time, higher than normal fairway percentage hit obviously is going to mean higher green in regulation. Just about 2/3 of the time the greens were hit in regulation. That ranked 20th out of 47 on the PGA Tour. If you did miss the green, or of the 34% of the time that you did, the golfer would get up and down just about 60% of the time, which is about 16th out of 47 easiest, so maybe one of the harder ones, or I guess harder on average. And then once on the greens, they are also a bit trickier than average. They're at 1.60 putts per GIR, ranking it 17th hardest on tour. Okay, let's head into a few statistical notes here few statistical notes I have here. Because it's a longer course, par 72, 7,600 yards, I know that Bryce Garnett and Graham McDowell have been the winners, but we've also seen some bombers also do well here. Keith Mitchell, most notably. So I would say driving distance plus greens in regulation. The Bryce Garnett and Graham McDowell both had that very much in common, that their greens in regulation were over 70% on both of them, and their driving accuracy was also over 70% on both of them. Now, seeing how the averages that I just told you were right around those numbers, I guess that's not too much of a surprise. But let's also learn who is going to be in this field this week, as we're back to an event where it's maybe a little bit different in terms of who gets status here. So let's dig into that. First, a couple few that obviously most people know about, which would be the tourney winners and of the past 2 seasons. Of course, the winner of the Open Championship, which is Henrik Stenson in this case, is still, I think you get a 5-year exemption for any major one. He might be the only major winner in the field. Then we got a career money list, Bo Van Pelt, and then the Korn Ferry. This starts the sponsor exemptions. This comes out of the Korn Ferry Tour graduate category from the 2018-19 season. That includes Mateus Schwab and Brendan de Jong. Next comes some of sponsors exemptions, which a couple of these guys you may never have heard of before, so I'll try to give you a little bit about them. The first one we have is Isajo Benitez. I'm probably going to mess a few of these up, so I'm not going to lie to you. It's a 21-year-old or 22-year-old from Mexico. He did compete in the Open a couple of years ago, and has been competing on the local IQ series, but nothing too great. Thomas Dietrich is number 1. Sam Horsfield was going to be another one, but he got COVID, so he can't play. The next one we saw is the 18-year-old star, or maybe not quite star yet, from South Korea, Jo Hyung Kim. He will get another start. Kurt Kitayama also in the field. Then a couple of local Dominican Republic guys, Alex Pomeroy and Harry Sifla, I believe is the names. And then 2 guys, or 3 guys maybe, that are in play. Alex Smalley, a Duke grad that got status on the IQ Series Tour. He has 3 top 10s there in those, so pretty good. Justin Sue, also been competing in that IQ Series. He has 3 top 10s and a 33rd in 4 events. Also came in a tied 21st at the Barracuda, so look out for Justin Sue this week. Will Zalatoris was supposed to get a sponsor exemption, but now doesn't need it after the top 10 at the U.S. Open. Roberto Diaz, another one. A couple of other guys that I have never heard of before, probably local guys. Julian Guerrera, Olivaros, and Santos. So 3 guys there. We'll have to do a little bit of digging to see who exactly these guys are. Okay, then we got the PGA Player of the Year, Ben Cook from the area. And then Open qualifying, there's 4 of them. Graboyos, Gavin Hall, Katrude, and O'Shrine. So actually 4 guys again that I haven't really heard much of that I'll have to do some digging into this week. Then we've got the top 125 non-member. Of course, we have the top 125 Fedex Cup from last year. Of course, anybody that wants to play. Top 125 non-member is the next category. That's William Gordon. Major Medical is going to be Kevin Chappell, Chris Kirk, Graham Dillette, James Hahn, Sean O'Hare, Jamie Lovemark, Grayson Murray, Hudson Swafford, Kelly Craft, and D.A. Points. So D.A. Points, he won one of these alternate fields events a couple of years ago, so interesting name there. Then we get top 10 in ties from the previous event. There's 3 of them, so interesting. 3 golfers that didn't have status in this event are getting in. J.J. Spawn, Christopher Ventura, and Akshay Bhatia. Interesting name there, the 19-year-old possibly future star in the PGA Tour. We'll certainly find out. Next, top 125 from the FedEx Cup from 2019. Remember, we had that weird year last year in COVID, so this category will get into plenty of events this year. Golfers like Fabian Gomez, Brunson Burgoon, Chase Seifert, Kyle Stanley even, Peter Malnati, Rob Oppenheim, Johnny Vegas, a couple of those type of players. They did not get into the top 125 last year, but because of the weird season, they didn't have that many starts, etc. They'll still get plenty of looks this year, as might the 126 to 150 category, at least in the beginning. Josh Teeter, Seamus Power, Peter Uline, Zach Sucher getting into this week's field, as is the beyond 150th category, like golfers like Alex Jecka, Sang Moon Bae, and Tommy Gainey. So certainly an interesting field this week to break down. We'll go over a couple of the other sponsors' exemptions that might come out and field changes over the next couple of days. Now, let's go into our salary guesses, which is something I try and do each and every week, as long as we don't already have the salaries, of course, which most of the time we don't. This week, I'm going to go with Henrik Stenson. I mean, he's obviously here because maybe Graham McDowell told him how fun it was and how nice of a course it is. I don't know, but I know that they're friends and they go long ways back. So Stenson is here. I suspect that he'll come in as the odds favorite, seeing how McDowell did win it last year. I suspect that they won't mess around. Stenson will come in at 11,000. Got Mackenzie Hughes, the Canadian, who just missed the cut at the U.S. Open, but had been playing some pretty great golf before that. Also has a really good finish here at this course, 10.6K. The aforementioned Zalatoris, I mean, maybe not just the aforementioned, I've mentioned him quite a bit. I got him coming in at 10.4K. I don't know that they're ready to just throw him in as the odds-on favorite either, so I suspect he'll probably come in below those two guys. Then I got Corey Connors, who's in the field, just missing the cut this past week. 10K, of course, driving accuracy and driving and greens in regulation. I mean, this guy led the PGA Tour in greens in regulation, so Corey Connors should be in play this week. Emiliano Grillo also in the field and playing good golf. I have him at 9.7K. Luke List, 9.2K. And Keith Mitchell, also a really good finish here, either last year or the year before, coming in at 9K. So that gets you started for this week. The Corales Puntacana Championship, like I said, normally I'd be able to tell you, hey, listen, I know it's the Corales Puntacana Championship, but we're playing for X. However, sadly, I lied to you as I'm doing this in the end of it. I mean, I'm doing this at just about 10 o'clock. And I'm going to tell you that we're still playing for $200,000 this week. The PGA Tour, the DraftKings has put out something called the PGA Tour 600K Beach Vacation. I don't know what's all that about, but they've also got a mega snowman contest posted, $100K for the $888 buy-in, which probably means we're going to get a $50K to first for the $200. Not posted yet, but that's just my guess at least. And probably a $25K for the $100. So until next time, everybody, we'll have the Fit in the Form podcast coming up tomorrow afternoon once we get salaries and all that fun stuff. And then, of course, a full slate of content. We are not going to stop. Actually, we're not going to stop for quite a while. We've got, of course, the Corales Puntacana Championship, which, like I said, we're playing for $200,000. So not half bad to be playing for what would be considered a week off or a week field, which, we'll take that, of course. We've got the Sanderson Farms Championship, followed by the Shriners Hospital for Children's Open. Then we've got two really fun events. And why I say fun is because it's at two new courses, two very well-known courses in the United States. The CJ Cup at Shadow Creek. Should be a fun one out in Las Vegas. All the best in the world will be there to compete. So I should say 3 weeks of fields similar to this, where we'll maybe have 1 or 2 stars if we are lucky. Then the rest of the players after this 2-week break, or maybe 3-week break, I'm sure we'll get Patrick Cantlay and a few of other good players out in the Shriners. So it's really a 2-week swing out in Las Vegas for the Shriners and the CJ Cup. Then the Zozo Championship has been moved to Sherwood Country Club. That, of course, Tiger Woods knows quite well. That will be followed by the Bermuda Championship. Again, the Bermuda Championship, very similar to this, used to be an alternate field event, but because of the WGC, HSBC Championship, and the Ryder Cup getting canceled, those two are now full field events. Then, after that, we get the Houston Open, which is funny because it resumes its place as the tournament right before the Masters, as we get the Masters on November 12th. No week off for golfers that are competing in the Masters and need some Fedex Cup points as the RSM Classic right across the road, just right through the state, maybe a couple of hours over to Sea Island Resort in Seaside in Georgia, a beautiful resort there for the RSM Classic. That will then do it for a couple of weeks when the Hero World Challenge and Mayakoba Golf Classic, so the top maybe 14 golfers in the world will be playing the Hero World Challenge, while the other golfers in the PGA Tour will be playing the Mayakoba Golf Classic. Then it is actually a almost month break between the Mayakoba Golf Classic and the Century Tournament of Championship, so maybe a couple of weeks off there, but after that, we've got the Century Tournament of Champions coming up on January 7th. And then we go right through all the way until the Tour Championship on September 2nd. So basically just that 3-week break from September. Not from September. From the Mayakoba to Century Tournament Championship. It's about a 4-week break there. And then we go straight through until September 2nd of next year. So 3 weeks off for me for the next year as we have a ton of golf coming up. I guess the super season, but in reality, it's not really a super season. The PGA Tour almost operates every single week of the year with their wraparound season. So maybe not as much as some people thought, but still, it seems like a ton of golf. So this time, I will say goodbye to everybody. I thank you all for coming to the Opening Tee podcast for the Corales Puntacana Championship. I will see you on the other side for the Fit in the Forum coming out tomorrow afternoon. And, of course, I will finish out the Awesemo Golf Weekly podcast series with the Against the Grain on Wednesday morning. So till next time, everybody, we will see you on the other side. Cheers.